plugged up the power? Not power. Andrew, power's up. We're not plugged up.
Yeah, it's not plugged in. Plug it into the trunk, Matt. Sorry, I gotta get this to the Berkeley County.
I didn't realize your hair was
Can everybody hear me okay? Okay. Well, we want to welcome everybody out. We're in beautiful Shepherdstown here in Jefferson County, West Virginia, and we're really excited to be here with you guys this evening, especially right here in front of the library, which, about 100 years ago, the Women's Club in 1922, after we received the right to vote, the Women's Club turned this into the library that it is today. And since we're 100 years since the right to vote, and we had a devastating death of the Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg last night, I want to take time to have a moment of silence for her before we get going. Thank you. So one thing that Ruth Bader Ginsburg taught us was to speak our minds even if your voice shakes. And that's what we're doing here today, bringing people together to talk about the issues that matter most to West Virginia. And first up, I'd like to introduce to you a surrogate for the Kathy Kunkel campaign. She's running in the 2nd Congressional District against Alex Mooney. So Ginger Hankins, can you come on up and give us a little talk?
I didn't know this was happening.
Hi everybody, happy to be here, especially today. Today the fight really starts. Our opponent, Alex Mooney, this morning for the first time tweeted out about abortion. Closer to my face. So the battle begins today. We need your help for all of these women who are running across West Virginia. We are doing some door knocking, we're text banking, we're phone banking, we're mailing postcards. We need your help because this fight starts today. It really kicked up a level today. We all know what we're fighting for now, so join us, please.
So you've heard me talk a little bit, but I'm sure you probably have no clue who I am. My name is Kaylin Barker, and I was born in Florida on accident because I came a little early when my mom was on vacation. But since I was 6 weeks old, I've lived in West Virginia. And I recently graduated from West Virginia State University with a master's degree in public administration and public policy. But with that fancy piece of paper came over $100,000 in student loan debt. Because unlike some people, I don't have the option of going to school for free or having somebody else pay for it. I had to take out loans and work to put myself through school. And I did hair during the day and went to school in the evenings. And then graduated with this overwhelming sense of excitement and dread, because I thought, well, I have this fancy piece of paper, so I can find a job now, and people are going to pay me. And then I quickly realized that that's just not the case here. Finding a job, even with a master's degree in West Virginia, is really difficult. And so the reality set in for me that here in just a few months, I have to start paying that stuff back. And my payments right now stand at about $1,200 a month. And I don't know about you, but I don't have an extra $1,200 a month just laying around to pay back student loans with. In fact, I don't have an extra $12 a month to send to anybody for student loan debt. So that's why these elections are so important, because if we can't get people like Paula, like Kathy in office, people in West Virginia, young people, are going to continue to leave because we don't have options. You know, especially down in the coal fields where I live and where we work, there's not an option. There's Walmart and there's McDonald's. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to flip burgers for minimum wage with a master's degree. And that's not fair to ask our young people to do that. And that's why we keep leaving. So that's why these elections are so important, especially for West Virginia, because we have to keep our young people here. We have to build a future for our state. So it's a little bit about my history. But for the first time since the women got the right to vote 100 years ago, exactly 100 years ago, all Democratic federal nominees for office are not only women, they're progressive women, and they're women that have refused to take any dirty corporate PAC money. These are exactly the type of people that we need in Congress fighting for West Virginia every day. So I am very, very excited to introduce my friend and your Democratic nominee for the United States Senate, Ms. Paula Swearengin.
Campaigning in the age of COVID. Ooh. Sorry, guys. As I was saying, campaigning in the age of COVID, we sterilize everything. Anyway, hello everybody. Thank you for coming out and listening to me. I'm always humbled to come to the Eastern Panhandle. You guys have always welcomed me with open arms, and you have done so much work for us. And on the behalf of the people in the coal fields, I can't thank you enough for standing up and doing what's right. For those of you that don't know me, I am a poor coal miner's daughter and granddaughter. Most of my family worked in the industry. I'm a single mother and a new grandmother. My grandson is 7 months old. And if you would have told me 15 years ago that I would be the Democratic nominee for United States Senate, I probably thought you were crazy. But because my family worked in coal mines, I lived in a community called I was born in a community called Mullins, and I lived in a community called Iroquois, West Virginia. And as a coal miner's daughter, our water came out of an abandoned coal mine, and our water was orange with a blue and purple film, had specks of metal in it, and I've dealt with the boom and bust of the market. And when my stepdad got laid off in the coal mines, we moved to North Carolina for a while, and I didn't know I wasn't a redhead until I was 12 years old and I had access to clean water. My grandpa, 45 years in the coal mines, proud UMWA member. He served in Korea. My dad was a coal miner, served in Vietnam, and he died when he was 52 years old because he was exposed to Agent Orange in Vietnam, and he was a coal miner. And I watched my grandfather suffocate to death. A lot of my uncles, a lot of my family. I've been to more funerals than I have family reunions. And I know with everything that's going on with Rockwell, you guys do not want to suffer the same plight that we are in the coal fields. So our struggles expand across the state, and our pain knows no borders. And so I got active when I came back home. We came back home to take care of my grandpa. I seen that there was no economic diversity in the coal fields. People were still begging for something so basic as a clean glass of water. The Industrial Revolution was built on the backs of West Virginians, their families, and surrounding communities. And the rug has been pulled out from the people in the coal fields. People are living in impoverished conditions comparable to a third world country. A lot of people have cardboards for windows. That's what King Coal give us. And whether if you agree with coal or not, it's not going to rebound. And we don't have a plan B here in West Virginia. We had over 140,000 coal miners in the 70s, and we have less than 50,000 nationwide. And there has been no just transition. And I've traveled this state. I've been to the Northern Panhandle, and I know that people in the Northern Panhandle are suffering the same plight that we have in the coal fields. And it's time for us to unite, y'all. It's time for us to unite like we have never united before. We can have clean water. We can have clean air. We can have those jobs that we've been promised, and we've been bid against each other for basic human rights. But I know that this is about us and us uniting and standing together. All across this state, I've seen people unite. My neighbor, when I ask him for a wrench, he doesn't ask me if I'm a Democrat or Republican. He comes over and helps me, and he brings his wrench. I'm a proud Democrat, but we have to unite like we've never united before. We had over 93 candidates on the West Virginia Can't Wait slate, ordinary people like myself that are just tired of not being served. 43 of those candidates won their primaries, and like Kaylin said, thank you. Like Kaylin said, you know, this is the first time in West Virginia history that every Democratic nominee is a woman. We're progressive, and we're not taking corporate PAC money. And now, thank you. And I know that we are the West Virginians that we are, and we've always taken care of each other in the front lines of our communities. But also, I have to toot my horn as an Appalachian woman, because I know when I went down to Payton City and talked about the water crisis and helping. We didn't ask about party affiliation. What we talked about was being mothers and grandmothers and women and sticking up and saying that our children are not for sale, and we are going to stand up and we are going to fight for our children. And these 4 women, I cannot wait when we all get elected, because we are ready to bust the halls of Congress wide open and making sure that West Virginians have a seat at the table for the change. We see a movement of ordinary people running across the country, even with brandnewcongress.org. Look them up. My colleague, Cori Bush, she's on her way to Congress. She got through her primary. She's on her way to Congress. She used to be homeless, and she's a leader in Ferguson. I believe in the intent of this country, by the people, for the people, of the people. My opponent was the first woman to be elected to the United States Senate to represent the state of West Virginia. She's a mother and grandmother like me. And she has voted against equal pay for women at least 3 times. She's voted against Social Security when we have a large part of our population in the state is elderly. She has voted to turn Medicare into a voucher program. And the biggest thing that she's done is get some legislation passed for commemorative coins. It's time to send a mother and grandmother to Washington, D.C. that is going to fight for our children and grandchildren, and not turn a blind eye to our children dying and starving in this state. Right now, guys, it's up to us. People across the country are supporting our campaigns, and they see the battle cry of Appalachia that we need represented. My opponent's raised over $3 million. Less than 2% of her donations are individual donations. We've had people that have had to leave the state donate and volunteer for the campaign. We've had West Virginians step up and volunteer and donate for the campaign, but we've also had people nationwide look at West Virginia and not stigmatize us like we don't have teeth, shoes, and brains. And they have stepped up, and we have raised over $1 million in this campaign, and the average donation is $20.63. We actually almost outraised her last quarter, even with her dark money coming from gas, coal, and the pharmaceutical industry. So I think that people across this country are tired, are sick and tired of these people serving corporations and lobbyists instead of us. So what do we do now from this moment? You know, I stand behind the democratic values in this country and making sure that everybody has a living wage. Everybody has access to health care. Everybody has the same opportunity to job opportunities. Everybody's treated fairly and equally. And those are the same values I think we all want. We all want basic human rights. And people believe in us and they're looking at us. So we have to volunteer and donate, get on the phones, talk to your neighbors, do everything you can. We have an opportunity that we have not had here in West Virginia in decades, and that's sending people to Washington, D.C., or sending people to the Capitol that really don't want to be there, and that's what it's about. This is not about political expediency. This country girl does not want to go to Washington, D.C., but I want to go there and fight because it's about survival. I'm on a raise hell the whole time I'm there because West Virginia is tired of being 49th and 50th in opportunity. And you guys hold a special place in my heart because I know that you're fighting rock wool, and I've traveled across the state, and it seems like the coal fields have set the platform for genocide and poverty and pollution. And I'm going to fight just as hard as I can for the eastern panhandle, the northern panhandle, the central part of the state, and every part of the state, because I definitely do not want you guys to experience the pain we have in the coal fields. But, you know, I'm tired of, I'm done preaching and fussing, but I am here for you. And I'm going to open it up to questions. If anybody has any questions, and, we can have a discussion about platform. Does anybody have any questions? Do you have one?
What about health care, Paula Jean? What will you do about health care?
Well, one of the first things I'll do when I go to Congress is I'm going to co-sponsor Medicare for all. And I'm going to give you some good reasons why so we can end the argument about Medicare for all. They're like, how can you pay for it? Well, Google search. We are going to save money with Medicare for all. It's been proven that this country will save money with Medicare for all. If you look at West Virginia as a whole, most of our people in this state, because of our elderly population, and we have a lot of sick people in this state and a lot of poverty, the majority of our state is already on Medicare and Medicaid. And when we talk about economic diversity, if we had a universal health care system, then it would take the burden from small businesses of having to pay high premiums for the employees, and they could actually put that money back into their business. There's a clear difference in having health care and having access to health insurance. There's too many people in this country that have to pay high deductibles and co-pays and still can't afford their insulin or go to the doctor. If there's an emergency, they could be homeless. With Medicare for all, we don't have to worry about your employer dictating what kind of insurance plan that you have. You will have health care. Health care is a human right. This is one of the richest countries in the world. We don't have a budgeting problem, we have a moral problem, and that creates a budgeting problem. And everybody should have health care, and nobody should have to worry about where their next meal is going to come from. Nobody should worry about job opportunities. This is supposed to be the land of the free, and we are supposed to be welcoming to everybody. And we can do this just as long as we have people that are serving us instead of corporations and lobbyists. Any more questions?
Right here's one, Paula.
Okay.
What is your plan for the environment and clean water?
Well, there's a lot of things. Oh, what happened? Okay. Well, I fought for clean water, clean air, and economic diversity for years. The Reclaim Act would help our state greatly. We could make sure that we would not tap into things like the AML fund and call it minors' health care and pensions, and actually make sure that these corporations do, pay their bills. We can make, we have to invest in communities across this whole entire state that has dealt with pollution, clean those places up so we can invite business here, and make sure that people have jobs in those sectors too, and cleaning up the environment here. You know, I am for combating climate change. I am for the Green New Deal. There's all these things that we can do, but we have to protect our environment for future generations. And we can have jobs, clean and safe jobs that make a living wage without killing everybody in the process. Okay, what kind of jobs can replace coal? All kinds. It's been proven that renewables are viable in West Virginia. You know, despite the propaganda, the sun does shine and the wind does blow. I mean, exactly. I mean, how many times have we heard it? It's ridiculous. We have a lot of potential for geothermal across the state. We have a lot of hot spots. You know, this is the birthplace of rivers. We have a lot of dams across the state, so we have a lot of potential for hydropower. Hemp is a crash crop that we can go into. You know, we can tap into the plastics, the agriculture, biofuel. We legalize cannabis and decriminalize cannabis. We would see economic growth within 6 to 8 months, and that's a boost that West Virginia needs. On a federal level, we already know what's going to happen, so I hope the folks are listening at the Capitol, call them and tell them, we want to legalize cannabis, and West Virginia wants the piece of the pie before everybody else gets it. Comprehensive broadband. We've heard from my opponent every election season, Capito Connect. She's been, you know, she's a first-time senator. She's been in there for 5.5 years, and it really shows how disconnected she is. She wants to privatize broadband. She wants to sell us out to the largest bidder. And we have seen companies come here, get state and federal funding, not spend it in their communities, and expand broadband like they should have. Broadband should be a public utility. It ties in to our economic infrastructure. We have seen it ties into education prior to COVID and advancing and everything that's going on with trying to put our kids back to school and digital learning, as well as our communications. So if we have comprehensive broadband, clean water, clean air, good schools, if we are paying our teachers and service personnel well, if we have good roads, good bridges, then we're going to invite other business here. But the thing is, the possibilities are endless, but we need people that are visionaries for our future instead of visionaries for our demise. And how can we trust anybody that is beholden to corporations and the pharmaceutical companies to solve our problems? And that's where we're at, and that's why we have an uprising of people like myself. If these people are not going to do their jobs, we're coming after them. Any more questions? Well, that ties in for Medicare for All. If they're not competing, then, you know, the drug prices are going to go down too with Medicare for All. Well, Medicare for All was more comprehensive, and if you look at the bill, and that's one thing that I like, and it also expands into dental and vision. And a lot of people that are on Medicare already, even with their Plan B plans, and are already on Social Security, we see that your deductibles go up every year, right? But then your Social Security, you get a small raise, so you keep on going out, you know, every year you keep on paying more out of pocket, and you keep on losing even more money to even pay your utilities. So it is even more comprehensive than that, and it'll cut out the deductibles and things like that. As well as one thing that I like, and I forgot to mention a while ago, is just transition in this bill. When I looked over this legislation that Senator Sanders had drafted, we don't see just transition here in West Virginia and in the coal fields, but people that work within the insurance companies, there's federal funds to help them go into other trades so they don't get left behind like we have in West Virginia. But if you look at the bill, they call it Medicare, you know, they call it Medicare for All, but it's way more comprehensive than Medicare for All, and that's why I support it.
Will it be able to do away with the supplemental plans?
I'm sorry?
Will it be able to do away with the supplemental plans?
Yes, ma'am, absolutely. And be careful. I mean, I did.
Medicare, we have supplemental, and we have to pay for a drug plan, and then I still put out around $400 a month for medication.
Yeah, you do. And also, too, get my phone number before we leave and call me, too, because I used to do medical billing, and I'll help you with that because you don't even need that supplemental plan. That's just a way to take out money from you guys. And I can help you with that, too, if you want me to, and I'll talk to you about it.
Why isn't the United States government buying their drugs like they do in Canada? They put it out and they buy from the low bidder. You know who comes in the lowest price?
Why are we not buying our drugs like Canada?
That medicine comes from here, goes to Canada, and you can buy it up there for more.
Greed, and they're catering to the pharmaceutical companies. That's it. That's why. Any more questions?
Yes.
Yeah.
Many states require their citizens with recycling to have put their paper in one box, glass in another, cans in another. Would you foresee doing something like that in West Virginia, where all citizens?
Which recycling, and I see that too, even across the coal fields. That's like a state and local government issue. But you know, on a federal level, we could have influence and even talk about it federally because people across the country are recycling and we don't do it well here in West Virginia. But you know, talk to your folks like your locals here too, and talk to people at the Capitol because I agree with you. We do need more recycling across the state. Any more questions? Oh, well, Kaylin just asked about student loan forgiveness. I am for tuition-free college and student loan forgiveness. You know, my son just had a new baby, and him and his girlfriend owe more than they do for a house. And he thinks there's no opportunities here until we bring opportunities here. So, you know, my family has seen that firsthand too. I do want to take a second and let's talk about addiction. This has been like a pet project of mine to figure out how do we fix it, because we are leading in drug overdose deaths in the country. Here in West Virginia specifically, we are plagued with this addiction like no tomorrow. I don't know anybody that has not been impacted by addiction one way or another. I've had family members and friends addicted. I've lost some. I've lost my little brother this year. What I've learned first is going to come from us. What I've heard from people across the state working in the addiction community. We have to quit stigmatizing addiction and poverty. These are systemic problems, and people have to have a path up, and I don't know anybody that just thought, well, I'm going to be an addict. I know 80-year-old women that went in and trusted their medical provider, they gave her pills, and she became an addict. So first and foremost, it comes for us. We need to quit stigmatizing and figuring out how to solve the problem. The second thing that I learned is we have a lot of people that are funded by Big Pharma. And we hear, oh, the big war on drugs, we're going to end addiction in West Virginia. Drug replacement therapy, from what I've learned, does play a role in people's recovery, but it's not the end-all be-all. And the main focus for a lot of these people is visionaries to go into drug replacement therapy, because they're the same people that let them ship all these massive amount of pills in their communities want to take that money after they got us sick and put it back into Big Pharma. So I found out that long-term recovery systems work. We have people all across the state that are implementing long-term recovery systems. People don't have access to beds. They don't have the money to get in these long-term recovery systems. There's not enough long-term recovery centers across the state. There should be one on every corner. They should be getting state and federal funding, and they don't. So we have to invest in state and federal funding into long-term recovery centers and making sure that they have the money and the tools that they need to give people a path to recovery. The third piece to that is making sure that people have opportunity when they are as part of their recovery system. If people can't get food stamps, if they can't get a job as part of their recovery, and we can't build them up after they hit rock bottom, then they're going to go down the same destructive path. So we have to make sure that people have the access to the tools that they need, not only the recovery program, but part of the program being that they can have something when they come out. And another thing that I want to add is, of all my years of activism, and talking to these people that were deaf tone or having to get arrested in their office to even be heard. By the way, my telephone number is 304-894-7472, and I promise you, when I go to Congress, you will not have to get arrested to talk to me. You can talk to me anytime. But where was I going? You know, these people are out of touch, and I want to make sure that West Virginians do have a true seat at the table on a federal level. And we have seen people all across our state that are working to solve our problems in their communities while these people are serving corporations and lobbyists. So here's a promise, which I hate campaign promises, but I'm promising you as a mother and grandmother myself and an Appalachian, you guys will have a seat at the table. I will be hosting roundtables, and I'll be opening my doors to West Virginians and the people across the country to help write legislation that I introduced that directly impacts our lives. We know what it's like to live paycheck to paycheck. We know what it's like to solve our problems. It's time for us to have a seat at the table for a change. Any more questions? Oh, somebody asked about HEROES Act. So recently in Congress, it's kind of complicated. We had the HEROES Act on the table. Congress went into recess till Labor Day. And my opponent, instead of standing behind the HEROES Act, which was a comprehensive relief package where they're trying to put bailouts for big real estate companies and all this other stuff that had nothing to do with relief for people across the country, she decided to craft legislation called the HEALS Act that would not hold businesses responsible when we were putting people back into unsafe working conditions, so you had no right to sue your employer if you got sick. But also she wanted to take the $600 a week employment benefit that people are trying to fight to get back, and said that it was not an incentive for people to go to work. So basically she was saying that hardworking West Virginians and people across the country and blue collar workers were just lazy, so we shouldn't give them $600 a week to survive, is what I thought it meant to me. But what happened was, if I'd been in Congress, I would have been kicking and screaming before I come home. We are hurting right now with this pandemic. It's $1,200 in the HEROES Act. $1,200 per dependent is not enough. I think that we should have at least $2,000 to everyone across the board until we figure this out. Anyway, she came home. Digital press briefings with Jim Justice protecting themselves while they're pushing their children, their school service personnel, and their educators back into school. And then she had a big fat cat fundraiser at the Greenbrier with Jim Justice, $25,000 plated dinner, $11,500 for a photo op. Recently I found out she was exposed to COVID. I don't know if she got it there, but you wonder. She's exposed to COVID. She's in quarantine for 14 days. That's a vacation for my opponent, while people that are in quarantine right now wondering if they're going to be able to pay their rent because they're under quarantine. That really solidifies what we're dealing with my opponent. She's never wondered where her next meal was going to come from. She went to a private school. This is one of the sickest and poorest states in the nation. Most of us have never had the same opportunity as her. And what was her focus? Was to come home, fundraise, and leave legislation on her desk for 3 months and not even worry about people in the West Virginia or across the country. Boo. Anybody else?
How many coal plants and mines are scheduled to be closing, do you know?
I don't know how many coal plants and mine plants, but I mean, it's like in the coal fields. It's always been a funny dynamic with the mines. We used to have what we called election idle. They'd lay off people before elections just to get everybody excited and try to vote against their best interest because they're going to wonder where their job's going to come from. There was always a Christmas idle. It's always been boom and bust. But now people are seeing, even with all the layoffs and everything in the coal fields, that I've seen them open up one mine, the company go and open up another mine and lay the other one off, so they'll get everybody distorted against each other because they're worried about their jobs. Or all of a sudden, that mine in Logan County is open again after 10 years, but it only opens up for about a month. So there is a lot of propaganda, and I think that we all need to be mindful of that. But it's not going to rebound. But it's because of competing markets that it's not going to rebound. It's because we are competing with gas and renewables and all kinds of different energy sources now. And it's just cruel to any coal miner to say that we're going to give you a job that's never going to be there anymore. And that's just the thing too, because, you know, I have, as a coal miner's daughter, and we've had all that dividing propaganda, fighting for clean water, clean air, jobs, jobs, jobs. You know, it wasn't my life goal. So, you know, I had somebody say to me, oh, well, you're just trying to take my job. I'm like, well, if that was the case, the only thing I'd have to do is wait. You know, there's a clear difference between being a friend of a coal miner and being a friend of a coal baron. And I'm a proud coal miner's daughter, and I'm going to fight for every coal miner and everybody across this state to have good health care, fight against black lung, and have a future for their children and grandchildren. Coal miners need clean water too. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
I was actually phone banking for you the other day.
Thank you.
It was great. It was a great opportunity to talk to our neighbors. I had one woman asking me about what your stance was on senior care and like funding for seniors who maybe had like in her situation, she had gotten divorced and she was single mom for a long time, and then she was just living paycheck to paycheck, but she had actually been a service member's wife, and she just felt left in the lurch.
She's asking, everybody out there digitally, she's asking about senior care, that a person had asked why she's phone banking. You know, me working in the healthcare system and working in billing, I've seen so many people that are elderly and forgotten, and a large part of our population in our state is elderly. And, you know, we have a homelessness problem with Vietnam vets in our state. You know, my dad served in Vietnam, and we have to make sure that people have something to come home to, housing, good health care, et cetera, et cetera. But I often see where people don't have the money to save and put up toward their elderly years to have somebody come in and take care of them in their home. You know, if a lot of people go into a nursing home, first thing they do is they start liquidating their assets to pay for that nursing home. So people work hard and they think that they're going to take that money and they're going to pass it along to their children and grandchildren and give them a step up. And people that do have that money, they end up spending all that money during their elderly years just to have somebody to help them come in, clean their house, or help them get bathed, or put it into their nursing home. So it is a big need and it's a big problem. And, you know, on a federal level, I will definitely make sure that senior citizens have a seat at the table when we start putting legislation through to make sure that they are taken care of. It's a sad day in this country after people have worked all their lives if we cannot take care of the most vulnerable in our society. Anybody else? Well, with no more questions, okay. Thank you. Thank you. So to get involved, I think, what is Kathy's website? Kuncleforcongress.com. Go to paulajean.com. Guys, phone banking is the hardest thing in the world. But, you know, I'm known internationally and nationally, but a lot of those folks up in the hills and hollers haven't heard my name. And they need to know that we have to motivate people to the polls. And they have to know that this country girl don't want to go to D.C. I'm going to make sure that we can survive. And they need to know that this is about us, and this is about us surviving and letting them know that we have hope for a change. So if you can get on the horn and phone bank, we greatly appreciate it. And thank you all so much. I mean, I absolutely love the Eastern Panhandle. Like I always said, you guys have been so incredible to me, and I'm so humbled. And that's just that. Let's continue to unite our fight. Thank you.